For the last half-century, there's been this carefully built system of treaties that's basically acted as the world's nuclear safety net. It was complicated, it was tense, but it worked. And just like that, it's pretty much vanished. So yeah, let's dive into what just happened to that safety net.
See, those invisible lines? They were a whole series of legally binding arms control treaties between the United States and Russia. But as of February 2026, the very last one, it's gone. Expired. So now, for the first time since the 1970s, there are no formal limits on what the world's two biggest nuclear powers can do.
So, what was this thing that just disappeared? It was called the New START Treaty, and its job was simple but absolutely critical: to put a hard, verifiable cap on the number of nuclear weapons the US and Russia could have ready to go at any given moment.
And this was the magic number, 1,550. Under New START, both countries were limited to that many deployed strategic warheads. And look, this wasn't just a friendly suggestion, it was the law. It was backed up by actual on-the-ground inspections to make sure everyone was playing fair. And now, that legal limit is just gone.
So, you have to ask, how did we keep this delicate peace for so long? Well, it was no accident, that's for sure. It was the result of decades of incredibly tense, painstaking diplomacy. Really, just a series of handshakes and signatures that literally pulled the world back from the brink, time and time again.
Let's do a quick flyby of how this safety net was actually built. It all started back in the 70s with the SALT treaties, which were all about just putting a limit on how big these arsenals could get. Then, a huge step forward with the INF Treaty, which actually banned an entire class of missiles. START-I in '91 was the first to demand real reductions, and then finally, New START in 2010, which made the deepest cuts of all. See? Each deal built on the last, adding another layer of security.
And this right here shows you the incredible result of all that work. I mean, at the height of the Cold War, the world had a terrifying 70,000 nuclear warheads. Through all these treaties, we brought that number all the way down to around 11,000. It's honestly one of the greatest and maybe quietest diplomatic achievements in modern history.
Which, of course, brings us to the obvious and really unsettling question. If these treaties were so darn successful, why on earth did we just let the last one expire without a replacement? Why is there no New Deal?
Well, it really boils down to three massive roadblocks. First, the war in Ukraine has just shattered diplomatic trust. Russia actually suspended on-site inspections way back in 2023. Second, the US is saying any new deal has to include China, whose nuclear arsenal is growing super fast. And China's basically saying, nope, not our problem. And finally, you've got all this new weapons tech, like hypersonic gliders, that's created a whole new set of problems that nobody can agree on.
So, without a real formal treaty, where does that leave us? Well, we've kind of drifted into this informal, very fragile new phase. One that's based not on legal documents and verification, but on something, well, a lot less certain.
Right now, we have what people are calling a gentleman's agreement. Both Washington and Moscow have said they will voluntarily stick to that 1,550 warhead limit, for now. But here's the kicker. This is a completely unverified promise. Without inspectors, it's just guesswork. There's no way to know for sure if the other side is quietly building more weapons. It all just hinges on trusting them to play by the same invisible rules.
And that really brings us to the bottom line, which is captured perfectly in this quote from the source material. For the first time in over 50 years, there are no legal limits on the world's two largest nuclear arsenals. The risk of miscalculation is at its highest point in decades. That's it. That is the stark reality of the new world we're in.
So for half a century, diplomacy gave us guardrails. Now, those guardrails are gone. The era of verifiable arms control, at least as we knew it, seems to be over, which leaves all of us with a final, pretty sobering question. What happens next? Will everyone just keep playing nice, or are we about to see the beginning of a brand new high-stakes arms race?